So she downsized the house, invested equity out of the prior home sale in her own portfolio, and now she's saving towards her own retirement with a 401k. So she's got that wherewithal now to know like it's going to be fine, and she's doing it on her own. And so she came in like this lost little puppy, but now she's totally empowered. And so she's not like the only example, but like she's just one who like was just so broken, but now is so empowered. And that's like the change that we want to make in these divorced women, is just making them feel empowered again and like they're on the new track.
Welcome to Wiser Retirement Podcast, where we believe the best financial advice should always be conflict-free. I'm your host, Casey Smith. Guiding you to financial freedom today is my co-host, the award-winning world's best financial planner, Missy Beach. Hey, Missy.
Hi, Casey. How are you doing?
Good. So this is the first episode you've been back on since your major award. I was giving you a hard time with Shauna on a couple episodes ago, but
I heard, and Shauna stuck up for me. Thank you, Shauna.
But yes, everyone here at Wiser is award winning, but you're the latest one. This is episode 250.
Wow.
So let's talk about that for a minute. I mean, first of all, this is a little weird because what we've done, if you're watching the podcast, is they removed our headsets. We don't have headsets anymore.
We're free.
So before it felt like it's just better for YouTube, I guess, but it's weird because now like I have presence of the whole room now, where before I felt like I was just in a conversation with you and I couldn't hear anybody else. So it's a little different. I'm threatening just to work everyone else standing behind us out of the camera view into the conversation just to make this seem more natural. But we've got so we have no headsets. We added a second camera for the YouTube channel, A Wiser Retirement. You can go there and watch this if you ever so choose. We actually do have a lot of watchers of the podcast. So thanks for coming back. And hopefully you will enjoy the new 4K cameras and whatever graphics that Rachel adds to this program.
Yeah, so fancy. We are stepping it up.
I haven't seen the final results yet, but I know they're going to be great. So let's talk a little bit about the history of this podcast. Our first podcast was done in June 20th of 2020.
Oh,
that was the first podcast. So it was a decision that we made during COVID. So the first part of COVID, the market was falling, crazy things were happening. And then by June, things were really picking up in the market, but everyone was just staying away from people and hunkered down, and the phones got kind of quiet. And I was like, this is a great opportunity to do some things, guys, that we've been meaning to do while everything's a little quiet. And so this is one of the things that came out of that was the podcast. Now, what people may not remember is that initially we started off with the Wiser Roundtable. That was the original name of the podcast, was the Wiser Roundtable, because we're sitting at a round table.
Oh, like Knights of the Round Table.
Like Knights of the Round Table. That's right. And I wanted it to be I wanted a podcast that covered many different topics, maybe not always just financial planning. You know, we work in aviation stuff all the time on episodes. So we noticed that when we talked about retirement specific topics, that our listener, the numbers went up. And so that's when we decided that we would just call it a Wiser Retirement Podcast, and people were able to find us much easier that way. So far, over the last 4 years, we've had over 51,000 downloads.
Wow.
That's a big number. If you divide that by per episode, you know, it's still a good number in podcast world. I mean, we typically have well over 200 downloads an episode now versus
episode one in 2020.
Yeah, back then, I remember if we got 25, we were excited. Yes. And the episode download count continues to increase most weeks. So, but that puts us in the top 25 of all podcasts that are out there. So there's over 600,000 podcasts. Most of them are not listened to. So we're honored that we are a podcast that is listened to. If you think about looking back at time, the most downloaded episode. So episode 170. Well, let me start at 5. Do a countdown, right?
You got to
episode
build.
5 was episode 70. Number 5, episode 70. How much money do you need to retire? That was number 5. Number 4 was episode 184. What it's like traveling full time in retirement with the retirement travelers.
Oh yeah, that was a good one.
That was a good one. Episode 3, which is number 3, which is episode 168. Everything you need to know about 529 plans. Episode number 2 is episode 14. Are digital currencies right for you? Isn't that interesting? People still trying to figure that out, right? And the number 1 episode, I don't know exactly how many downloads that one had. Hadley might know that. But episode 173 was number 1, making the most of your airline 401k. And that's because we have such a strong client base. Over a third now of our clients are related to aviation, most of them being commercial airline pilots. That was the number 1 downloaded episode so far. We have one episode in the hopper for November 11th. I'm really excited about. I just recorded it yesterday. And that's with Courtney Miller talking about the future of the airline industry. And I think that's going to be a big one. That's an hour and 10-minute episode.
Normally
we're 20 to 30 minutes, but we went an hour and 10 minutes into that conversation about airlines and equipment and all that fun stuff. So very granular discussion on aviation.
Is it going to talk about like pilot careers, or is it going to talk from a consumer perspective?
No, it's more from a pilot perspective.
Okay.
Yeah.
Nice.
So it's you have to be somewhat of an insider to get all the lingo. I tried to describe things like what scope clauses and all that stuff as we went along, but I couldn't quite keep up with how fast we moved through the different topics.
Well, our pilot clients will appreciate
And what I did for that episode is I sent out emails to our most active listeners and asked them what questions they wanted to ask him.
Oh, that was smart.
And then I built the podcast on that. So that comes out November 11th. So I'm excited about that. So let's talk about, we don't have a specific topic that we were going to cover for episode 250. It's a bit of celebration, bit of a test episode. We have new equipment. We have new background, same room, but different setup. So let's talk about some of our success stories over the last few years.
Yeah. I mean, there's so many to choose from because everybody's unique. No one goes down that same path. Yeah, the framework is always going to be the same and the same, check boxes, but everybody goes down it at a different pace. People may take divergent paths to get to that ultimate goal,
right?
But it's never the same. But I love some of like those tangents that people go off on. Like I'll start with one, which I just thought was crazy. And we're on that pilot theme. We had a pilot that came in that was just dead set on, he didn't like debt. And hey, we don't like debt either.
Right.
So his mission was to pay off his primary mortgage. And hey, Wiser's all behind that. By the time you get to retirement, yes, it's all about cash flow freedom, pay off that primary mortgage. Well, he was an eager beaver. He wanted to do it in 1 year. So he had about $250,000 left on that primary mortgage. Well, as a pilot, you have that luxury sometimes of picking up those green slips or maybe even those silver slips that are, like candy out there these days. He did it in 1 year.
Wow.
Okay. His wife admitted she never saw him because he was always on the road, but he was able to pick up enough trips, build out that schedule, paid it off in 1 year. Granted, it was not the best year because he was always in the air, but he set his mind to it, paid off the mortgage, and then dropped back to a much more normal schedule the subsequent year. But hey, set a goal, attain it, and then move on. So I was like, gosh, that's a success story.
And do you think of how volatile the airline industry can be? That's a great defensive play because, you look at Spirit right now on the verge of bankruptcy. Maybe by the time this gets published, they're in bankruptcy, but But yeah, not every airline is experiencing the best life ever right
Well,
now.
and that's an example of this was a pilot who had been through the very lean years of the airline industry, and he knew the famine years. So he's like, while it's good, I've got to make hay. And so he used his position and was like, hey, I can get these great hours and trips now, so I'm going to pay off the mortgage while I can because I don't know what the future might hold.
Right.
And in the pilot situation, medical is always the issue. So he's like, while I have great health, I'm going to use it to my advantage.
That's a lot of times people walk in, I think, with planning. A lot of people could probably figure this out on their own, but they really want our calculations to give them the confidence that they can execute something.
You're right. Just that validation.
Yeah.
Like, does this make sense, or is that the best choice?
When I was a new planner, I remember the agony that I would have and knowing that I had to tell someone that they couldn't do something.
Oh, I know. It's the
was
worst
horrible.
feeling.
And and now you have to be careful with your words. You don't want to hurt people's feelings, but now I feel like they're paying me to tell them the honest truth. And so when I deliver the truth, they already know it.
Yeah, they know deep down.
Yeah. And they, okay, yeah, we figured this wouldn't work. I'm like, are you kidding me? I didn't sleep for the last 2
I
days.
know. Like, you already knew that?
You already knew that, right?
Why are you asking?
Right. Or a situation where I had to tell someone, no, you can't buy this house.
Yeah.
And I remember it was a Saturday. I got in a text from them and say, hey, this is a house we want to buy. And I think it was like mowing the grass or something. I had to walk inside, booted up my computer, and I did the math, and I was like, "Oh no, we can't. No, this is not good." And so I didn't want to text them back, so I picked up the phone and called them and said, "This is out of reach." And they're like, "Oh, we figured you would say that. We had a plan B. We have another house that we also like."
Okay.
I was like, "What the heck?" So it's just maybe we just care too much, but.
Exactly. You don't want to tell anybody no.
No, you don't want to. No. But sometimes you have to for the benefit of them.
And we forget that sometimes people are just throwing these pie in the sky things out there.
Correct.
Because some people will believe those things are possible.
True.
And they'll just try anything because they live with blinders on and aren't as in touch with their finances yet until we make them in touch.
I think over the years, another thing too is people come in with just crazy portfolios. They have a lot of individual stocks. They have mutual funds left over from the 80s and 90s. And we immediately see a path and say, ooh, this could be optimized way better. And this is the way to do it. And I still have a little hesitancy sometimes in those conversations because people get emotional with their
it's hard.
with their possessions, especially their stocks, or scenarios where you have someone who picked a stock who's lost a lot of money, that's never going to rebound.
Yeah, dealing with one now.
Tell them to walk away.
Yeah, a pharma stock.
Yeah.
It rolled out and it's down 99% since it launched. And so the client is coming in now and wants to hold on to it to rebound. And we're going through that conversation. Like, do you want this one stock who's at its like 5-year low and it's like flatlined? You can see it on the chart. Do you want that to rebound, or would you rather put it in the, diversified portfolio and wait for thousands of companies to perform? So you're right. The emotional attachment to
pharma stocks are tough because they probably had one particular drug that didn't pan out. And that was that company's one shot, and there won't be another shot.
I know. It's so hard. And it's, a significant sum of money.
Yeah.
So I get it. I understand it. But yeah, you just need someone else to walk you through that emotional pit.
I would think that you have a lot of success stories with the women that you work with.
Oh, they're some of my best success stories. I have one kind of in the most recent past, maybe in the past year or so. I have one great divorced woman story who, was kind of struggling. The divorce went on for a couple years, as some tend to do, back and forth, wasted way too much money on legal fees. And she was just really stressed and about reinventing herself and not having the confidence of being in the workforce, after a couple decades of raising kids. Well, she went back. She got a new corporate job that was making a third more than her little part-time job had been doing. She got out of the big family house, liquidated that because we realized that was not going to make sense to hold on to. She did not need that now that the kids were gone. So we went through that kind of very emotional exercise of letting that go, knowing that the kids did not need to come home to the family house just because they were in college. They could come home to a nice new house. Mm-hmm. So she downsized the house, invested equity out of the prior home sale in her own portfolio, and now she's saving towards her own retirement with a 401k. Mm-hmm. So she's got that wherewithal now to know it's going to be fine, and she's doing it on her own. And so she came in like this lost little puppy, but now she's totally empowered. And so she's not the only example, but she's just one who was just so broken, but now is so empowered. And that's the change that we want to make in these divorced women, is just making them feel empowered again and they're on the new track. So that's the win that I love to see.
We have, it's not a divorce situation, but we have a more of an elder situation. I think a lot of what we do is clean up messes from other advisors. And so Shauna,
that's hard.
I did not work with this person directly, but Shauna came in and said, "Hey, I've got this older lady who her husband has dementia. She went down to a financial advisor who sold her a bunch of annuities, and they have medical issues. They need to make some withdrawals. They have enough money, but they need to make some withdrawals, but they can't because it's greater than 10% of the value of the annuity, and there's going to be penalties involved." And I'm like, what the heck? Who puts this much money into annuities? Well, she didn't know any better. The guy was a CFP, but it doesn't matter.
No,
because he's working for a firm who doesn't honor his fiduciary oath. So in the end, this is why we work as a team. So Superstar Michaela started looking through the documents, and she says, "Hey, didn't you say the lady's also sick?"
Oh,
and
very sick.
And Shauna was like, "Oh yeah, she is." And she's like, "Well, she has cancer. She's probably not going to die of this cancer necessarily, but nevertheless, it's cancer." And that's what got her out of the annuity policies. We were able to use a cancer clause to get her out of the annuities.
Oh, that's right. And the doctor wrote a note.
We got the doctor to write a note, and we were able to undo all those annuity policies. Able to get money where it's growing again, because it's not going to grow with all the fees inside of an annuity. It takes really large market movements.
Oh, absolutely.
To drag an annuity to the up positive category.
Oh, and you know what was a little insult to injury with that situation is the annuity company didn't process it correctly.
No.
They sent it out with all the penalties taken out.
With all the penalties, yeah.
And so Shauna had to bulldog that on behalf of the client and say, no, take these checks back. You processed that wrong.
Right.
And so on behalf of the client, Shauna had to advocate and say, nope, take these back, do it right.
Yeah.
Because the annuity companies will just try anything to just, Yeah,
I did a little piece for our YouTube channel that I'll post today, next week, somewhere in there. It's for World Financial Planning Day. And I did a little study on all the countries that don't allow products to pay the advice giver. Of all the developed countries,
really,
we were like the last ones that allow this to happen. So those annuity sales will keep happening because they don't have to work in your best interest. It's just suitability. But it's a very interesting, I don't know. It's just very sad. And I get emails. I had an email from a very nice lady who said she bought an annuity and she's so glad that she bought an annuity but she bought a fixed annuity. That's very different. That's saying, I don't want to take any risk. I'm going to give you this $300,000, $200,000, and you're going to send me a payment for the rest of my life. That's going to supplement my Social Security, and I'll be just fine.
Yeah.
And that's what you want to do. I don't have a problem with that. I have a problem with money that needs to grow.
Yes.
And it's not going to grow inside these variable annuities. Index annuities are probably the worst.
Oh yeah, indexed.
So anyway, but that was a case where we're able to really save the family.
Oh my gosh.
From a very, very bad advisor who unfortunately can't be punished because he did everything within the law.
I know. That's what stinks about it.
She was suitable for all that, right?
Yeah.
So
suitable. That term is just evil.
Are you curious why annuities keep coming up as a potential investment option? People are often told that annuities can effectively mitigate investment risks and help secure their financial future. However, annuities often benefit the salesperson and might not be the best choice for you as a consumer. To learn more about the various types of annuities, the negatives of owning them, and better investment alternatives, we have a free ebook on our website just for you. To download our ebook, Buyer Beware, Why Do They Keep Trying to Sell You That Annuity? Simply click the link in the episode notes or visit wiserinvestor.com/guides. Now let's get back to the episode.
So you and Michaela also work with a lot of young people.
Oh gosh, yeah. So there's totally so many young people out there that have a lot of student loans. So recently we came across a young professional that had over $300,000 in student loans from law school. And maybe some were a rollover from undergrad as well. But these still stayed as government loans. So they had never been rolled over or consolidated. So that was a key. But the issue was that, we were forced with, he had saved up a great sum of money and could pay him off all in one foul swoop. But was that the best decision? And I hated to see him use just a pile of cash to pay it all off, even though it seemed like the right thing to do. So we engaged a student loan planner who knows the ins and the outs of the federal system, the pay-as-you-go, the income payment or income-driven repayment plans. And so that's what this client was on. And she was able to do all the calculations and look up his history. And so actually, he's self-employed, so he can control his salary and an income-based payment replan because he's an S-Corp. So for his situation, as long as he controls his salary over the next 9 years, he's going to have over $200,000 forgiven by the time 9 years pass. And so he's going to have this total windfall. Yes, there's going to be a tax bomb because when those loans are forgiven, hundreds of thousands of dollars are taxable income.
Correct.
So all you listeners out there, it's not all it's cracked up to be. You have to pay tax when you have student loans forgiven. So let's not forget that.
Or any debt forgiven for that matter.
Yeah. So that's taxable income. It's not a total free ride. So we were able to, number one, preserve this cash he had set aside for paying off the loans for other income producing growth investments. Yeah. And then just monetize, these student loan payments into other better vehicles. So that was a great partnership that we were to make with the student loan planner and figure out how to save this young, high earning couple so much money over time.
Right.
So that was a win.
Those are things that there's so many firms out there that say they do financial planning, but very few do real financial planning. If you walked into an Edward Jones, there's no way they'd be able to figure that out.
Oh my, no.
If you walked into a Wells Fargo, there's no way they're going to figure that out.
No.
It's 4% of our industry that figures this stuff out. That's what I get so frustrated about. Only 4% of our entire industry would be able to figure that out.
No. And it's just problem solving. Because you have to think of all the alternatives.
Right.
And we tell our clients all the time, it's not us telling them what to do with their money. It's us telling them different paths that they could take.
Right.
Because like for this student loan couple, it's not us saying, hey, yeah, use all your cash, pay this off, because that would be one alternative. Sure. If he wanted it out of his life today, he could do that. But by exploring this student loan planning option, yes, he has to keep the student loans in his life for 9 more years, but at this great financial benefit. So
what, just curious, and you may not know the answer to this, but in an S corp, you have your W-2, but then you have your profit for the company. Did the profit net count toward getting student loans paid off? Or do you have to do they have to file separate returns to pull that off?
Well, it's like and they're going to married filing separately.
Yeah, I figured that was probably...
That's another part of the equation. So they're going to file separately for these next years.
Okay, in order to get to forgiveness. This was his loan?
Yes, just his.
Okay,
not in the wife's name. And she also works in the business. So there's a way the CPA can kind of...
Yeah, she can get the K1, he gets the W-2. Yeah, I could totally see that now. Interesting.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's definitely
creative.
Definitely a true financial planner can figure that out.
Exactly.
Right?
Yeah. So it involves coordination with the student loan planner, the CPA, and us.
Right.
So again, quarterbacking that whole relationship.
So you think about retirement, for a long time, all the retirement commercials on TV, with big annuity companies or insurance companies always had the sailboat or they always had the golfer, right? But a lot of people don't play golf and a lot of people don't sail. Although we just did a podcast with the Swarthouts on their sailing ventures, and they're semi-retired, I guess, working part-time. But I also have the RV. So you have an RV story.
I do. We have the nicest couple who Michaela and I met with, and they had come from another advisor, and all they really wanted to do was buy an RV, but the other advisor said they couldn't. It wasn't possible. It would not work in their plan. And we thought, well, why? Let's see how we can do this. And I forget what the particulars were of the situation. Like they were both still working, but somehow we were able to maybe pause the 401k savings for like the last 2 years of working because it was not going to move the needle overall.
No, right.
And we just moved those savings over to a cash bucket, a high yield savings account. They were able to get their RV
and pay cash for it.
Pay cash. And they were the happiest couple ever because that was their primary goal.
Yeah.
Retirement was a goal, but buying this RV was like on the critical path to retirement. And so for us to find a way to fund that and not sacrifice the retirement goal, it was like they won the lottery. And so to make that happen for them creatively, and it wasn't like a big sacrifice to move a couple years of 401k savings over there. I mean, it didn't impact the retirement spending dramatically.
People don't realize that. It's not saving in the beginning is super costly. The middle is very important, but near the end, that maxing out that 401k doesn't have as big of an impact as you would think.
Exactly.
Partially because all the compounding's already happened at that point, right? The snowballs should be already pretty big.
Yeah.
So adding a few flakes of snow to it's not gonna do much.
No,
so
and that
was good on your part.
I love to show clients like as they're approaching retirement and they're all in the panic, thinking they need to like sock it all away. And when I show them, like, well, yeah, if you save 40 grand to your brokerage account these last 2 years, like, yeah, you're gonna spend like what, 3 grand more a year in retirement. I mean, obviously it depends on the plan, but it might be something not very significant. And they're like, oh, well, yeah, why would we bother sacrificing and having a miserable 2 years pre-retirement for not that great of a benefit later?
Yeah, exactly.
So that's the value I think that software provides when used properly. So we know how to manipulate it to turn these emotional decisions into purely economic choices.
I think that every decision or every plan that we've helped with has been a success story in some form or fashion. what I do is, or what our system does, is we have a lot of efficiencies here and use a lot of technology, but we send out a planning survey after all the plans are done. And I share those with you guys when they come back, but we've never had anyone complain that the planning process was not worth it. I've had people who hired us just to manage money for them, who refused to go through the planning process. And I said, I will not manage your assets until you've gone through the planning process, period. And so they go kicking and screaming. And when they get to the other end, that's all they want to talk about. When they come in for the review meetings, they are anxious about the plan. They don't ever ask about assets under management or what the rate of return is. They just want to know, hey, does the plan still say I'm okay?
Exactly. It's the peace of mind.
So it's like, I always like, we're a financial planning firm that does asset management. And there's the contrast, there's asset management firms that try to do financial planning, but they're not really wired that way.
No, it's almost like they do it because they feel like they have to say they do it. And so
Right,
it's like
show
they
value.
just punch numbers in their software just to spit out a plan, but it's not really a meaningful plan.
No, it's a time value money calculation. And basically it's, it's not covering everything.
No, it's really not.
It's like we took a deep dive into clients' property casualty a few years ago. Now it's part of our regular routine of checking in once a year. But the in Atlanta area, especially, we've had such an increase in value of homes that a lot of people are underinsured.
Oh, yeah,
and you got to remember,
huge.
These property casualty agents, as nice as they are, they have thousands of clients on their rosters, and they don't have time to call you up and review all your policies. And plus, if they did, you'd probably be like, well, why are you going to add this? When it's coming from a third party who doesn't benefit from you getting more insurance, it's a very different thing. And so we started realizing that a lot of people's homes are undervalued. If they lost their home, they were not going to get the full home back. And then a lot of people didn't have flood insurance, not from water outside, but in pipes flooding the house, or the sewer system,
the water backup.
That's what it is. Yeah. Not your faucet, but your drain coming the wrong direction. That was like $10 a month. Most people didn't have that in their policies.
And
that's the most common way a house floods, actually. So
the uninsured, underinsured motorists, not everybody has that.
Right. So that's part of the planning process, is not just about, do I have enough money to get to where I'm going, but hey, have I mitigated my risk? As best as I can.
Can I protect the nest egg?
Or people that have two homes, but maybe the second home's like an Airbnb kind of situation. And their umbrella policy doesn't cover nightly rentals. Yeah. It's very important that those things get reviewed, and then you can go into estate planning. Same thing. We had someone recently who came in who said, yeah, my estate planning's current. And we started looking, I just pulled it up on the screen, and we all decided that, okay, it's not current because these people aren't living anymore. I have this document, but is that document reviewed? So it's looking at the whole picture, which is part of the review process. But even in the initial planning, that's important as well. Although I feel like with estate planning, initially, most people are just getting the documents because they don't have them at all.
I know. Yeah, absolutely.
But it takes a really good team. I keep saying this on our podcast, but I work with a lot of existing clients. I don't work with as many new clients unless they're business owners, because that's kind of my specialty. I love talking to the airline pilots, but you guys can do that just as well as I can.
We know the lingo now.
But yes, you guys need wings. I get you some wings. But it's great to see how our team works, where we have you as a senior planner, Shauna as a senior planner, and then we have Grace, Michaela, and William, who are all studying for certifications or the CFP. Who are doing a lot of the legwork for our plans. And we sit here on Mondays and we do, we review all the plans together. So it creates a really good environment for making sure the clients are getting the best advice with multiple people looking at them.
Absolutely. And developing like our planning associates into the next generation of wiser, I think is awesome. And those Monday sessions where we all collaborate on client plans is invaluable, because most firms don't do that.
Right.
It's just like an individual working on a plan, giving it to a client.
That's true. A lot of people go to these big firms thinking that oh, this is better. I have
Bigger's
more people.
better. Nope.
But actually, it's almost like working with a person who just is themselves and a secretary.
Yes.
Because it doesn't work that way at big firms. They don't work together. There's just a lot of people with one advisor.
Yeah. I've been at those big firms and operated in that system. And you don't get as good of a product, because that's what I tell clients during the consultation. I'm like, you have more brains like collaborating and thinking of alternatives on your plan and second guessing and challenging, saying, why this? Have you considered that?
Right.
And so I feel like, wow, our plans are so robust, and we think of more scenarios and just challenge each other to make it better. So I love our Monday meetings.
Well, certainly we like to see successful clients, even if they come in, they don't feel like they're successful, but showing them that they can be or are is always a fun process. And I thought it was a great way to celebrate. Episode 250 was kind of rehashing those. The names are protected or names are redacted to protect the guilty or innocent, right?
They're all innocent.
So anyway, we, again, thank you for listening. We really value our listeners. Always feel free to shoot us emails. If you have questions, maybe topics that you'd like to see us cover. We've done that a few times. Those are really popular episodes. But anyway, thanks for listening to today's episode. Interested in learning more about our firm, you can always go to wiserinvestor.com or click on the show notes. So see you again soon, Missy.
All right.
Thanks for listening to a Wiser Retirement podcast. We hope you enjoyed today's episode. Make sure to subscribe wherever you're listening. That way you don't miss any new episodes. We'd also appreciate if you could leave a rating and review. If you have any questions about anything that was discussed today, head to wiserinvestor.com and reach out. This episode was produced by Rachel Dotson. This podcast is strictly for informational purposes only and is not to be considered as investment advice or solicitation to buy or sell any financial products, securities, digital assets, or any other investment vehicles, or a basis to make any financial decisions. Wiser Wealth Management Incorporated is a registered investor advisor with the SEC. The host and/or guests may personally own securities, digital assets, or other investment vehicles mentioned on this podcast. Neither the host nor guests of the show are compensated for their participation, and no referral fees are paid to or received by any host or guest for clients, listeners, or similar interests. Investments involve risk, and unless otherwise stated, are not guaranteed. Be sure to first consult with a qualified financial advisor, tax professional, insurance professional, and/or legal professional before implementing any strategy discussed herein. Past performance is not indicative of future performance.